Okay, so I think I've got this last thing, and then we'll sort of, open up for questions, and that's swapping energy dense foods for high volume, low calorie foods. So some scientists will say, and they've concluded through their research, that the human body doesn't really recognize the number of calories coming in, but it does sense the volume of foods that come in, and that we become satiated with high volume foods as opposed to energy dense foods. You can imagine it's way easier to eat 6 chocolate chip cookies than a big gigantic salad, right? That's high volume and lower calories. So a way to get out of a plateau would be to swap your energy dense foods for high volume, low calorie foods. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, if you take a look at this graphic, obviously your high fat foods, right? The foods on the left, you can see are low volume, high calories. So that's 767 calories, and probably peanut butter is one of the worst culprits, right? And on the right-hand side, you've got high volume, low calorie strawberries for 180 calories. So take a look, what is your client doing? Where can you swap out, right? Your high volume, low calorie foods for these low volume, high calorie foods. Here's another example of what 1,000 calories could look like, right? So this is seeds, which are calorie dense. Nothing wrong with steak, nothing wrong with any of these per se, but you could swap out with getting equal amounts or more protein, more fiber, and more food volume, which means what? You're able to control hunger and satiety levels. You're able to fight those increases in ghrelin, to manage your appetite, and to stay in a calorie deficit. Okay, and then we've got this last strategy, which is taking diet breaks. I think in our culture and fitness, we call it cheat meals, sometimes cheat days. I personally don't like the name cheat because it implies that you're doing something morally wrong, as opposed to planning diet breaks. So what do I mean by that? That means that get out of a deficit every once in a while. So periodically increase your calories to maintenance, right? And Neil can speak to this, especially with bodybuilding and physique athletes, but it's up to the individuals. In the research, you'll see that sometimes, they'll have people follow a deficit 5 days a week and then increase to maintenance 2 days a week. A lot of people do that naturally as well, but doing it intentionally as opposed to depriving yourself and then binging is a lot more strategic way to do that. And by doing so, some of the research indicates that it may reduce those metabolic adaptations that your body forces and creates to close the calorie deficit. So this is a really good study that came out, I think it was last year or the year before, the Matador study, and it actually compared intermittent energy restriction or diet breaks to basically continuous caloric restriction, being in a deficit, traditional dieting. So what it was 16 weeks in a deficit, right, versus the other group, and I think it was 51 men who were obese, right? The other group alternated 2 weeks in a deficit, 2 weeks in maintenance, 2 weeks in a deficit, 2 weeks in maintenance. So they were both groups were in a deficit for the same number of weeks, but obviously it took the intermittent group a longer time period to lose the weight because they took 2-week breaks from dieting. So here's what the study revealed. The diet break group lost more weight. So it was a significant difference, and they maintained a higher basal metabolic rate. So it does indicate, it points to, and again, this is a newer area of research coming up, but it does point to sort of it being more effective, taking some diet breaks. So you might have to experiment with it with your clients, depending on what they want to do. They've got to be more patient, obviously, but this would be another way that you could help prevent plateaus or even help to overcome them.